Hi there, welcome back to my channel. It's James here. I hope you're doing okay. So, chaos. This is the theme of today's video. This morning I went into my grow tents because I'm moving next week. And I started to try and just cut things back because it's gone mad in there. Obviously, I've just let stuff grow. Like, there are certain things that I'm tending and keeping contained, and there are other things like my Hoya which have just exploded everywhere. So this morning I've just been cutting stuff back and it feels like I'm in a full-on garden, like I've got piles of propagated stuff lying on the floor that I've cut out of the tent. This is Micant, some Philodendron Hederaceum, var Hederaceum that just like grew up to the top of the tent and the light was too low and it just circled around the top of the tent and I just left it there. And now there's so much Micans and I don't know what to do with it. So yeah, this is basically what's happening today. I'm not gonna like drag you around the grow tent because it was super chaotic and you won't be able to see anything apart from like me sweating and swearing. But I do want to show you some of the things that I cut off the plants, and I'm gonna like trim my moss wool in front of you so you can see that. But yeah, that's basically it today. So I've cut off like a bunch of things, but I just want to show you a couple of things that I'm kind of happy about. Most of these grew on my moss wools. This first one is a Monstera dubia, which I got as like a tiny little thing, and it's grown, shingled all the way up the moss wall, and all of this from here up to the top was up against the side of the grow tent, and it just crashed into the top and actually lost its growth point, unfortunately. So it's going to kind of revert or shrink a little bit anyway because of that, but I am pretty happy with it. It's such a nice texture, like super velvety. I'll mount it up on something and try and get the growth to carry on. Doesn't have the biggest root system, but the nice thing about this, all shinglers, is that they kind of root the full length of the stem really well. So as long as I keep the support nice and moist, nice and damp, it should be okay. So that's the first one. Same grow wall. There were actually a few of these. I put some Philodendron Brantianum on the grow walls because I wanted to try and get, I don't know if maybe you have seen, but the mature form of Brantianum is really gorgeous. It's got the kind of elongated shape of like a melanochrysum. And I wanted to try and get that, but they didn't mature very fast. They're still much bigger than they were when I put them on, but this is one of 3 stems, I think, that was growing up over the top of the grow wall. So I've just cut it off, and again I will probably try and plant that up by itself, and hopefully these roots will do something. And maybe try and keep a little bit of size going because it has done a good amount of growing. Like the cutting that I put on the wall was like the tiniest, saddest, most shriveled little thing. So it's done well to get from that to this. This next thing is massive, and this I'm really excited about. So this is a big old bit of Hoya, and this is my Hoya Michele or Michelle, the super splash one, with really high levels of splash in the leaves. And yeah, it's just turned into this huge long winding vine thing. This is just a segment of it. I've got this, and then I've got this, and a couple of these little single nodes which are like wound through this is much less splashy. So yeah, not all of them have the really high splash, but most of them do. Some of them are wound into the shelves, so I had to cut them into pieces. But yeah, what I'll do now, I might as well do it here while we're watching, is just, where's my scissor? There we go. My little scissor. And then I will just chop them up into little things, and I'll stick them in water or something. But yeah, some of them are just lovely. Like the level of splash in that is magnificent. I'm so happy with this plant. It's been just a dream. But I have to cut it now. I wouldn't have cut it otherwise. I would have let it just trail full on around the grow tent. But it is getting a bit unmanageable. Really lovely. Look at that. Pretty good roots as well, which is nice. I won't have to root them for too long. And then seemingly, like as we go up the stem, I dropped it, it gets a little bit less splashy as we go. Does it? Yeah, I think this is like the last really highly splashed one. This one here, which is super nice. The texture of these leaves is just amazing. They're like plastic, incredible. And then like higher up, they're a little bit more like green like this, but still really nice. And the thing about splash is that the potential is there in almost every leaf. Some of them seem to be a little bit more inclined to splash heavily, but it's there for all of them. So if you have this, I'm going to plant this up and the new growth might come through super splash. It's like Wilbur Graves or whatever. Like, it's hard to... oh, I just love that. I didn't finish what I was saying, but it doesn't matter. And then this whole length here, because it doesn't have any leaves, this is how fast it was growing. It just shoots out these tendrils and then gradually starts putting out leaves. I will plant this up in something, in pon, probably try and get as much of these roots down into it as possible, and hopefully it will grow from there. But I will also be getting rid of some of this because I do not need a forest of this plant. Yeah, there's just more, but we're not going to look at more because it's a mess and it's a little bit overwhelming, but we're going to be okay. And it needs to be done, otherwise I would not be able to take my great tent apart. Another slightly challenging thing is these moss wools. So I did a video updating on this pretty recently, but since then it has grown just so much still. Like, it's so heavy because I just watered it. But yeah, this is what we're looking at now. Like, that Esmeraldens on the side wasn't supposed to be there, but it grew up from the plant that was below the grow wall and then rooted into it, and I can't get it out, so I just cut off the top and left it in there. But what I'm going to cut off now is this Rhaphidophora high variegated, which is curling out to the side, and then the big old Melanochrysum, which is growing up, and it hit the top of the tent. So that is not ideal. Just want to make sure I'm not squashing any leaves. Good. So I'm just going to chop this off. It is pretty beautiful, actually. Like, really nice leaves. It's crazy the growth progress that's happened with the plants that are on this wall. I tried to air layer this, but I don't think it's worked very well. Like, I had a quick look earlier, and it's just, this Milano was growing so fast that the nodes were like growing out of the air layer. I was wrapping it around, and then I come back a couple of days later and the node had like shifted up above. So I was just chasing the node for ages. And yeah, I've pulled it off now and there's very little root growth, but we're just gonna have to roll with it and deal with a little bit of leaf maturity loss. It's a shame. Like, it's definitely, if it had taken, if the air layer had worked, it would be really well rooted at this point, because it's had like probably a month and a half, maybe less, I don't know. I lose track of time so easily, but it's had a good while to root. But yeah, there's nothing there. So what I will actually do, why am I so stupid? Sorry. I'm like, oh no, I have no roots. And then I remember that that whole plant is literally rooted into the moss wall. So I will cut a node down, so underneath the grow wall, and I'm just going to try and tease out the roots. I'll probably just do this one right here, and hopefully it will give it a couple more roots to settle in with. And then this high is also trapping it, so I'm just going to snip this off here. Interesting leaves. I really like it, actually. That tip one's really variegated. It's very nice. It doesn't seem to mature as fast as the non-variegated one, obviously, because there's less chlorophyll, but I didn't expect it to have that much of an impact, because I have non-variegated high on one of the other moss walls, and it's like growing really, really fast, like the size of the leaves. I can feel some roots going in. I just have to try and tease them out without ripping too many. So there we go. It's doing quite well. It's got little moss stick there. And then after this, I'm done. Like, you don't need to watch me struggle with these anymore, but just know that it's happening. And I will update you. Like I said, I'm moving next week. I will not probably be recording very much of the actual move, because that seems stressful. But when I get there, I'll talk you through. I mean, loads of people have done it. So if you are moving and you need help, there's lots of good resources. But basically, I'm just going to chuck stuff in boxes and move them. Super, super fancy. And also, like, the problem with this wall, I've said this before, is that, sorry, I'm just trying to like get it to shift, is that because all of these plants are planted together, oh fuck, sorry, just snapped a root, because they're all planted together, like, you can't just, okay, that'll have to do. We got a little bit, but like that's really not a lot. For the size of this cutting, we're definitely going to have some struggle time as it settles back in. But you know, it might be okay. What I'll probably do is I'll plant the base in moss and I'll wrap all of the nodes in moss as well, just to give it like maximum input of nutrients and water, and it should be okay. It's quite nice. I'm really happy with this. Like, it was one of my initial plant goals, I'm sure for a lot of people as well, but when I first found out about melanochrysum like 2-ish years ago, I probably got my first Milano about 2 years ago actually. My intention was, that was actually this plant. So I got this plant 2 years ago as a tiny plant, and I grew it out and cut it, grew it out, cut it, grew it out, cut it, almost killed it, grew it out, cut it, and then I took a tiny cutting and stuck it on the moss wall, and it's matured and it's really nice. Like, I had a big Milano that I bought as a large mature Milano that died because of import stress, so it's kind of nice to have something moving in that direction, and hopefully this year, if this one doesn't panic and die, I'll be able to get some big leaves from it, so that would be very exciting. Let's just lie you down on the floor and I'll deal with you in a second. Is there anything else in here that needs a chop? Ooh, there's a wire. Move. I don't think so. I think we're good. I'm going to leave that, hang it back up in the grow tent, and everything can get back to growing again. This Gigas is getting so big. This leaf will be really, really big. But this previous one, sorry, my brain isn't working, is also massive. So I think that, hello, this will get really, really large as well. So yeah, that is it for today. Just a little bit of suffering for you to see. I mean, I do enjoy it. I'm joking when I say it's suffering. It's stressful. I get easily stressed by stuff, but it's also fun just to see how crazily well things have grown. And it literally feels like weeding a garden in there, trying to clear things up. So thank you so much for watching. If you want to see updates on all of these plants and all my other ones, you can check out my Instagram at slugplants. I post there pretty regularly, and subscribe to this channel if you want to see more like this, if you want to see updates. Hit the bell icon, like the video, and I will see you very, very soon. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.